You are listening to That Hoarder Overcome Compulsive Hoarding. Learn about hoarding disorder from me, somebody who has it. I promote a better understanding of hoarding disorder, a stigmatised mental health condition that is mocked rather than treated with compassion. I want to change that, and by talking openly and honestly about hoarding, I hope to start conversations that help. Find out how to support the podcast at overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/support. Finally, I am not a doctor. I'm just a hoarder doing her best. So do seek professional support if and when you need it. So I am here with Dr Jan Eppingstall. Jan is a therapist who works with people who hoard in Melbourne, Australia. Jan, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me back yet again.
You are always welcome.
To chat all things hoarding is what I'm all about. I'm here for it.
So we are starting with an occasional segment we have, which is called Permission Slip.
Do you need a permission slip?
In which either Jan or I bring an item that we are having some hesitancy about what to do with and ask for permission to get rid of it. So I have an item this week that I do not like and that has bad associations.
Okay.
But that for weird reasons that I will go into, I can't get rid of. So I will first of all tell you why I don't like it. First of all, so it's a plant pot. And first of all, it is that colour. Anyone who knows me knows I am colourful. I am all about colour. And it is that colour that is inexplicably both grey and beige at the same time.
Yeah.
Looks a bit green on the screen, but it's, grey beige. So it is not my kind of thing. Also, I got it because last year, one of my friends went from feeling a bit ill to having a few days to live, and it was horrible. And so I said to my boss at work, a good friend is dying. At some point in the next week or so, I'm going to have to clock out, and I may be a bit distracted. And he, of course, said, fine. And then a different friend died. And so I sent a probably incoherent message to the work group chat saying, my friend's died, but not the friend who's dying. She's still going to die. If it's okay, I'm going to take the afternoon off.
Oh my goodness.
So they of course said, yes, take the afternoon off. But then they sent, which was very thoughtful and kind, some flowers in that plant pot.
Okay.
And it was a very nice thing for them to do. But I look at the plant pot that aesthetically I don't like, and I think of the day one friend was dying and another friend died. Just the worst. So it's not good vibes. It's not good vibes.
No.
And my hesitation for getting rid of it, I'm aware this is bonkers before I even say it. Like, I'm under no illusions. This isn't rational. But it's a good plant pot, right? It's heavy, it's substantial. So what I should do is donate it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
However, it has soil and stuff on the inside that will not come out.
Okay.
It will not clean enough to donate. So I need to throw it away.
Yes. But it's a good...
It's heavy, it's weighty. Somebody would... But it's also greyish and associated with 2 horrific deaths.
Yes, you have my permission. I think there's too many steps there. There's too many... And it has too much, negative... The vibe. It's the vibe. The vibe is not good. If anyone from Australia is listening, that is my reference to the film The Castle for the evening. But no, it must go.
Thank you. That can go in the bin.
Just taking a moment.
It's been in a previous episode with a guest called Harriet Impey, she said a phrase that comes to me often, which is objects can glower at you. Like, why do we keep objects that glower at us?
Such a good quote. I love that.
Isn't it? That plant pot has been glowering at me for a year and a half.
A year and a half. Yes, it's taken up space in your mind for a year and a half. It doesn't deserve that. It's greyish.
It's great.
It's very. It's got no personality. I think it must go. And it's got bad vibes. Bad vibes.
It glowers at me.
Yes, it's gone.
Thank you. So today we are talking about something that might sound like a bit philosophical, but really has very real-world applications to hoarding. So we're talking about how objects and our thoughts might connect to our identity or a concept of ourself or our idea of ourself. So can you start by explaining what we mean when we talk about identity or self-concept in the context of hoarding disorder and how those ideas kind of show up when you're working with clients?
Well, the simple definition of identity is your answer to the question, who am I? It's that collection of labels, roles, characteristics, and stories that you use to describe yourself, to yourself and to others. So I'm a mother, a creative person, a hard worker, or I'm someone who loves books, or something like I'm the kind of person who helps others. So you can see there's those roles, interests, values, history, aspirations are all kind of tied up in that identity. Now, self-concept is the mental picture you have of yourself. So your beliefs about who you are, what you like and what you're capable of. So it's not just who you are, which is your identity, but it's also how you feel about who you are, what you believe about your worth and abilities, and how you think others see you. For example, I'm good at problem solving. So that's a belief around your capability. I'm not very organised is a belief about characteristics and people see me as reliable, a belief about how others perceive you. I'm not smart enough for that is a belief about your limit. So self-concept is like your internal mirror. It reflects back to you what you think you are. Sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's distorted, and sometimes it's very fragmented and unclear. So they're related, but they're different. Yeah, identity is the story you tell. I'm a creative person who loves art. Self-concept is how you feel about that story and whether you believe it. And what I find in my interactions with my clients and those who seek me out for help is often a fragmented identity, unclear or inconsistent kind of sense of who they are. Sometimes a weak self-concept, so low clarity about their characteristics and worth. And the big one, externalized identity, so using objects to hold and prove who they are. And the research really supports those kind of types of identities and self-concepts.
A lot of people with hoarding disorder describe our possessions as a core part of who we are. So what's happening psychologically when somebody feels this way about belongings?
So in hoarding disorder, identity and self-concept manifest as a profound fusion between the person and their professions. And it's that size of the, it's the kind of strength of the fusion, if you like. Objects become external repositories of self. So not just representing who someone is, but literally holding pieces of their identity outside of their body. So this creates what researchers have called identity object, where discarding an item feels like discarding part of oneself. People who hoard, as I said, may have a fragmented self-concept, and they may actually oscillate between grandiose internal narratives like I'm uniquely creative and sensitive, right? And devastating shame about their living conditions. So their possessions become proof of their worthiness and potential. And psychologically, this happens because objects serve an external validation and kind of like a memory storage. As we've discussed, for people who struggle with relationships, which many people who hoard do, possessions become safer containers for meaning than human connection. So the objects can't abandon them, judge them, or require reciprocal emotional labour, which I think is a really important one to recognise. Often objects validate special status as well, like others wouldn't understand the value of this, but I'm the one who does.
Yeah, no one else would appreciate it like I do. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Which that prevents kind of the exposure of what they perceive as their inadequate self. So, well, that's the reason I do it is because I'm special and I'm the only person who can see that value in that object. So it's kind of messy and complicated.
Yeah, and that, like a lot of the things we talk about, that makes me think of like a proud mum when their kid scribbles on a piece of paper. They see the value in, I have the cleverest, most creative kid, look at this drawing. And that is a real value to that real person. But outside of those two people and those scribbles on that piece of paper, it doesn't mean anything, especially to me or to you.
We can comprehend, we can understand that's really super important.
Yeah.
But we just don't have the emotional connection, the sense that it is valuable to us.
Yeah. So how do possessions become intertwined with someone's sense of identity? Is this different in hoarding, I guess, from the attachment most people have to some meaningful items?
So this is a question, the question of how possessions and identity become fused is one of those questions. It's one of those questions that you've written down and gone, I'll just write that down and then roll it down. Off she goes. I could talk for hours about this stuff. I think I can give you the picture, if not all the details, but there's pathways and they interact and they reinforce. So should I give that a go? Yeah, I think I will. So possessions become intertwined with identity when the childhood boundaries have been violated, for example. This is one pathway. And that creates a need for control and evidence of sovereignty over their possessions and their space. Another pathway is identity confusion. So that makes objects necessary as kind of external identity markers of places in time, of relationships, of connections, of, understanding maybe. Then there's just classic psychological ownership, and that's actually intensified in hoarding. So the experiences of objects as part of the self, we all kind of feel that objects are an extension of ourselves, but for hoarding, it's even more pronounced. Another pathway is the functions that people who hoard use their objects for. So they're simultaneously proving the past, the present, and the future self. Another pathway is anthropomorphism, which we've talked about, relationship obligations that define identity, like we kind of have this obligation to the object because it has human agency, etc. And that reflects badly on us if we do something bad to something that has agency, right? It also, another pathway is that whole executive function piece, which the use of objects to externalise memory and self-continuity.
Yes, I'll forget to pay the bill if it's not out in front of me, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll forget that thing happened. It's really important that I have that on display so I can kind of remember and refer to it. Another pathway is perfectionism, kind of using objects to protect a fantasy identity and project a fantasy identity, and protecting it from being exposed. So I'll use these things as kind of display that I have these
kind of proof. Yeah.
Proof. Yeah. Throw in a little bit of materialistic values, because culturally, we give ourselves permission for this. Like the whole idea of marketing gives us cultural permission for object identity fusion. Everybody is playing on that to get you to buy the next investment. And good old faithful intolerance of uncertainty is another way. It makes every discarding decision an identity threat. So all of these things, the intertwining kind of happens gradually and unconsciously and kind of completely until the person genuinely can't separate who I am from what I have, if that makes sense. The key difference we've identified in the research is that typical attachment involves interaction with meaningful items. So,
yes,
the practical use, like displaying items, using them and caring for them and we've talked about this in a couple of other episodes around actual interaction and thinking about other cultures that kind of display, use and care for their items, even in the Scandinavian cultures, in Japanese culture. It's often about lovingly engaging and maintaining objects. But in hoarding, I've kind of, I didn't used to think this so much, but it's becoming much more clear for me. I've kind of come to understand that it's often the act of retention itself that holds meaning, not the object. So the keeping is the meaning-making act. I've kept everything that my mother ever touched or might have touched. So that's why items that can be damaged or contaminated or never looked at again even are still, meaningful. They continue to be meaningful to that person. And that's a piece that's really difficult to shift, especially in the face of grief, loss, trauma, all of those sorts of things. But yeah, there's a lot going on.
There's the understatement of the episode. So hoarding, eh? A lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
So you've probably heard clients say things like, if I throw this away, I'm throwing away part of myself.
Mm.
How do we understand what's really behind that fear?
It's multi-layered and individual, and many things can elicit this fear. I'd like listeners to understand that the psychology of ownership, which is experienced by all of us, it has kind of three routes. So one of those routes is controlling the object. I can use this as I wish. The second route is knowing the object intimately. I understand this deeply. And the third route is investing the self. I put energy, time, money. Now, in hoarding, this experience or these three experiences become extreme. So route one, the control needs. Objects represent one of the few areas where a person may have complete control. And that's often one that comes up in therapy. It's mine and I will do with it as I wish. Letting others decide about discarding recreates childhood powerlessness. Again, huge one that I often see. And intolerance of uncertainty means every item requires certainty that they'll never need it, which is an impossible threshold. So all of those control needs is route one for hoarding, and it's it's at the extreme levels. Route two is intimate knowledge. So this is where objects are kind of become the repositories of memory and meaning. So without the object, the memory meaning feels lost. And unlike I don't like the word normal, but unlike normal sentimental objects that evoke memories, hoarding kind of involves believing the object is the memory.
Yeah.
And then there's route three, which is self-investment. Every object represents time, money, or energy invested. And discarding means wasting investment, evidence of poor judgment, incompetence, this is intolerable for that fragile self-concept that you've been building up, which relates to, which is your relationship with your stuff. So I think that's why it feels like this, any thought of letting it go is like, well, I'll no longer have control, which is a huge part of, how I feel and how I experience my identity. And then, I know all these things. This is me. This is my memories. These are, and I spent all this time collecting all of this stuff, right?
And one thing that stood out from what you said there, when you said being kind of discarding something means like admitting to, like, it's evidence of poor judgment. It makes me think of like clothes that still have tags on them because you've never worn them. And if you get rid of them, that's admitting that you bought it pointlessly because you've never worn it or never used it or it never fitted or whatever. And so if you keep it, you don't have to admit to that poor judgment.
Exactly. And that, I think, is a really very common, particularly, I mean, I don't work with many men, so I don't know. I say that up front because really men don't often seek help. But for women, that is a huge, really just hanging on to it, because then if I don't discard it, I haven't wasted the money because I still have it, I still own it. Even though it's looking at you every time you go into your bedroom, on glowering, the pile of them glowering at you. A client the other day was telling me her mum has just recently passed, which is extremely sad, and she's going through her mum's stuff. And there was a pile of black slacks. She called them black slacks because that's what they were. I think it was 40 pairs of black slacks. Probably 80% of them had new tags on. It's like, how could she possibly have worn that many black slacks? But
as long as you're holding on to it, it's got the potential of being a useful thing.
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
This podcast is sponsored by Chirp Your Home, a decluttering and organising course for overwhelmed people. Amy, a declutter coach and professional organiser, has condensed down a range of tools and techniques which she's developed with clients over the past 5 years. Chirp Your Home is a course that uses a mixture of reflective exercises and practical tools, with lots of options and opportunities to adapt methods to work for you as an individual. This isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. The course is in audio format with accompanying worksheets, and it's split across 4 modules. If you're worried about finding the time to work through the course, Amy also runs a free body doubling group twice a week that you can use to work through the course in your own time. Visit chirpyourhome.podia.com, that's chirpyourhome.podia.com, and use voucher code OCHPOD for 15% off. So some people keep items that represent who they used to be. I'm thinking of like retired teachers who have all their teaching notes, for instance, or keep items of who they hope to become. The kitchen full of gadgets for the person who makes beef Wellington from scratch every Sunday, or that represent important life chapters. So all of these are kind of identity markers, whether an identity of who you were or who you want to be or a time in your life. How does holding on to those identity markers serve people, and when does it become problematic?
So first we'll kind of tackle that. How do those identity markers serve us? So objects kind of serve 3 core identity functions. So the first function is proof of self, present identity. So I need evidence that I am who I think I am. And how they do this is, craft supplies prove creativity exists, even if it's unused. Books prove intellectual identity, even if they're unread. Collections prove knowledge, expertise in an area, even if they're not displayed or out of the box even. Clothes prove that you have style, that you're attractive. Even when they're unworn, they just say that. So, and the reason they can't be released by people is without physical evidence, the identity claim kind of feels fraudulent, right? The object isn't supporting the identity. It is the identity proof. So the keeping is the meaning-making act, which I said before. It's not about the object itself. It's about the act of retention, proving control, judgment, sovereignty over stuff. The second function is connection to the past self. So this is like the temporal continuity, the need. I need proof that I existed and mattered. And this can also be not only positive things, but negative things as well. I need evidence that this happened to me, because often clients and people who hoard, the trauma experienced in earlier parts of their lives, they've often been gaslit. They've been told it didn't happen, or it's been minimized, or no one believes them. So often that proof is needed to exist that something happened, whether it was good or bad. And research shows people who hoard believe possessions communicate aspects of their past, present, and future identity, which I think they really do. It is a message. It's a communication tool. Proof of experience. I was there. I did that. Often people, will say to me, "Look, these are things that I used to do before, things got difficult for me. Here's me jumping out of a plane or whatever. I did that. I was there." And sometimes it's historical, some of the amazing things people tell you. Evidence of relationships. I was loved and I mattered to someone. And that's a really common one. And it is just seeing the look on someone's face when you found a card or a present that a loved one who's passed has given or written for them. It's really overwhelming, because they feel that that's evidence there that relationship happened. And finding that, they feel overcome with joy that they have found it amongst their possessions. It's validation of part decisions. I was right to save this. So, we've got COVID. We've experienced that during COVID. I was right to keep all of these, whatever it might be. But the objects are also kind of like continuity of self across time. And there's a fear that without those objects, that the past self kind of disappears. So there's not the sense of self in the people who hoard is fragmented. So
it's not like a solid.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, well, I have to have all these pieces. And if I don't, then my past self disappears, the memory won't exist, the experience didn't happen, and the self will become discontinuous. But if I've got it all, I can kind of point to it almost in chronological order, right? The research support, like my supervisor, Kyung Yap, and Jessica Grisham, they found beliefs about autobiographical memory contributed to discarding difficulties. It's not just I might forget. It's without this, did it even happen? Did I even exist? The third function is that bridge to the future self. Now, this is what you were just talking about, the potential identity. I need proof that I could become who I want to be. Objects serve this, like unread books, potential to be well-read, unused craft supplies, potential to be creative, exercise equipment, potential to be healthy, right? Project materials, potential to be accomplished. If I've got all of those things, I can do it whenever I want.
Yeah, one day I will host a dinner party and I will need the massive pan and I will need the food processor that's been in its box for 20 years.
Exactly. And that massive, Schaefer dish that I say my grandmother never used or whatever. So this is perfectionism and identity protection kind of combined. So as long as the items are unused, the fantasy remains intact. There's no risk of failure, of disappointment. The ideal self kind of stays viable. It's still a possibility, and hope remains protected. So if you let those go, it's admitting you're not going to do the project. And that's really hard for a lot of us. It's hard for me to say, oh, I might. Oh, gosh, I feel bad. The guilt around not. Confronting the gap also between the ideal and actual self. That can be a very difficult and quite traumatic thing for people to confront, because they might be super close, but they also might be poles apart. And accepting who you actually are, which feels inadequate, right? If I let go of these things, I'll recognize all of the, failure.
Yeah, the only thing I've got going for me is that when I was a kid, I was good at this.
Yeah.
I have nothing else going for me.
Nothing else going for me, exactly. So stuff serves real needs, but it kind of creates an unsustainable identity. They do serve these three functions, right? They're not random or irrational. They're working solutions like to real psychological needs. But the difficult reality is they're like kind of using duct tape to hold a broken bone together. It's doing something, but it's not healing the actual break, or it might be creating new problems because it's making your home impossible to navigate. It's preventing proper treatment as well, because it puts a barrier between you and people helping you. And the longer it stays, the worse things get. There's no upwards from here just by keeping it. And then eventually the whole system kind of becomes more damaged. And it's not going to right itself without making some decisions around where we go from here in terms of, treatment, and actually facing some of these things that we fear around our personal identities.
Yeah, I was talking with my therapist recently about the thing where as long as I don't fix this, the more damaged my self-worth becomes, which then makes me less equipped to fix it. So there's already the things get physically worse, but there's also the longer I despise myself for the situation I'm in, the less will I've got to make it okay, because what do I matter kind of thing.
And the more you're kind of thinking those things, it's like you're making a spell almost. Like someone said that to me the other day. It's kind of like a spell. If I keep saying that, will it come true? And I said, yeah, especially if you say negative things, chances are, it's quite likely to come true. So exactly.
So I think it would be really helpful to talk about this with a quite specific example that comes up quite a lot in kind of people I talk to and things I read about hoarding. So let's imagine somebody who's kept hundreds or thousands of books, because those books represent the intellectual or thoughtful or well-read or cultured person they want to be, whether they've read them or not. The bookshelf is proof. What is happening psychologically in this situation, and how would you approach this with a client?
So owning books to prove being intellectual means a person's need, like people need some sort of concrete evidence of being intellectual. Okay, it works because you can point to the books, others can see them, they're tangible and real. And I think this is the core insight in this. They don't require performance or risk. They're just there. They do all these things for me, but I don't have to try and perform and risk failure. So how would I approach this? I'd start by compassionately eliciting the reasons why this person hasn't read the books. What's stopping them? Because objects offer identity without, chances are it's related to these things. Without performance, you must actually do the thing, right? That's probably what's stopping them. Risk, you might fail.
And if I try and read the book and don't understand it, that proves I'm not the intellectual person I want to be. So if I don't read it, that's a lot safer, because then I can be that person.
Exactly. Owning unread books maintains I'm an intellectual without risking of discovering I don't understand Kant.
This makes no sense.
I think Proust is boring. It's like, I don't want to know that. I just want to have that as an option, right? It's exposure as well. Others will see that you've attempted and you've come up short. And failure, you'll make mistakes if you actually approach these things. It's hard work. You've got to put a bit of effort in. The outcome's unknown. All of these things play, and vulnerabilities, your limits will show. All of these things play into a person's inability to approach actually becoming the person they want to be. So I would be working out where those barriers are. And then I might offer the insight that the books promise to make you intelligent, thoughtful, and well-read, but only reading and engaging with the ideas can do that. And you can read and expand your knowledge without owning any books at all. Libraries are repositories of the written word, right? So the books were a decoy, if that helps a person understand. They keep you from the actual work of becoming who you want to be. The keeping maintains the fantasy, and deep down you can do it, but you want psychological certainty. No action required, right? And then I probably discuss a little bit about that, about how they feel about those thoughts and whether that's something that they can psychologically grasp, because sometimes it's very difficult for people to, because they're so fused, it's very difficult for them to separate. And my suggestion to them would be to do. So read and discuss one chapter in one book, between now and next session. Share knowledge with others. If you have got some knowledge in a particular area, and that's something that is part of your identity, share it. Teach someone something. Do,
And you're allowed to read it and hate it. That's also fine.
Exactly. Yeah. That's also fine. And go, I don't know what all these people are talking about. I thought that was crap. And then everyone goes, oh, yeah, actually I did too, but I thought everyone thought it was great.
Yeah.
And you eventually, if you're honest enough, you're going to get other people who agree with you, really, and share those thoughts in some way. I've had some success with suggesting to people that, if they want to start kind of sharing their thoughts, get a Medium account or do some sort of blogging or whatever, because you will find your audience, you will find your tribe.
Yeah, I hate Proust.medium.com.
Correct. Exactly. And I convinced it, this is years ago now, I convinced this lovely client. She was constantly telling me how wonderful, she got great feedback with her writing in some writing courses. And I said to her, this is what you can do. I just discovered Medium. I said, off you trot, off you pop. And she did. And she got lots of followers and amazing reviews on a lot of her poetry, short stories.
Amazing. Yeah.
And it was just like, and I still follow her. I mean, this was years and years ago before I was actually qualified, and she was one of my very, very first, free clients when you're doing your placement, etc. And it's just a joy because it pops up every now and again when she's posted something. And I think, and why does that work? Identity builds through action. That's internal. It can't be lost by losing objects. And that's another thing. That fear of losing them is so pronounced that I think the only way to really stop, reduce that fear is to actually build the person you want to be.
Yeah, I'm thinking about a guest on a previous episode called Paige Pritchett, who was talking about overspending. And I asked her about the phenomenon where we want to take up a new hobby and we buy all of the things. And she said something along the lines of, to become a runner, you start running. That's how you become a runner. Buying the shoes and the clothes and that doesn't make you a runner. What makes you a runner is running. And that feels relevant to the book's conversation.
Exactly. And even like the craft thing. Okay, you want to be crafty. Well, crafty people can make something out of nothing, right? They don't need all of the equipment. That's part of what being creative is working with the tools and...
Yeah, all of this collaging I've been doing this year, a lot of that, one of the unexpected ways it's helped me is in my sense of resourcefulness, because I'm using what's around. And so if I have an idea in my head, but I can't find in my pile of magazines exactly what's in my head, I make it work with something else. It's taught me, like, my goal for it was about self-expression, but actually one of the things it's given me a bit of confidence in is, first of all, getting better through practice, and secondly, resourcefulness and communication as well. That's another thing. It helps me communicate things that I'm struggling to find words for.
Exactly. So it's a physical, it's a visual manifestation of something that you can't really put words to.
Yeah.
It does. It creates genuine self-esteem, because you could do that. And sometimes it works out better than what you thought in your head,
massively.
right?
And massively. And that resourcefulness is exactly what you're talking about. That kind of, I need something that conveys this. What do I have? Rather than having the perfect thing to hand.
Yes, and there's no struggle in it, is there? If you've got all of the perfect
the creativity comes from adapting, and The other thing I'm thinking as you're talking is I generally read on a Kindle these days. I know you're a Kobo girl.
I'm a Kobo.
I know that from your breakdown when it broke.
I had a breakdown. It's still working. It's okay. It hasn't broken down again.
But yeah, I don't love Amazon, but I get on well with the Kindle. I like that if I go away for a few days, I have one small thing to take, because I'm quite indecisive. I'm often in and out of several books at once. I can't be carrying 6 books to,
Me too.
and so I like that it's all on there. I was also very aware that books were an area that I gathered things, and that having everything on a Kindle would take up a lot less space. All of those considerations. But I remember when I first made the switch, I did have a moment of, but people won't know what I'm reading. And will I miss out on showing people the impressive things I read? And I didn't know until I was like about to stop doing that was a factor. Like, but what if I read something really cool and then a guest never knows that I read the thing really cool? It's so weird.
So weird. And it didn't pop up until you actually were presented with that, with that change. And you're like, but hang on, hold on. I won't have a massive wall full of books.
Yeah.
I won't be able to show off about all of the tough stuff I've read. Yeah.
Or even just like convey my personality. Or even if it's not, like, sometimes it is like a boasty thing, like, look what I read.
Sometimes
it's like, this gives you a snapshot of who I am, like a music collection used to do as well. Like, you'd go to someone's house and you'd look at their CDs, because that gives you an idea of who a person is.
Yeah.
And first of all, I don't have people coming round. Secondly, I still have a good number of books on bookshelves. But the key thing is that what I want to convey about my personality and knowledge, I can convey about my personality and knowledge by living in this personality and talking about my knowledge. I don't have to externally prove it by having books on a shelf.
Exactly. And that's the tricky part, is recognizing that the best way to do that is to be that person, not just have the things that make you look like you're that person, which is one step away from being and doing.
Yeah.
Being that identity.
You become a runner by running. Most of us who hoard know that it can feel very lonely and isolating. One of the things I get from listeners is that sense of connection, and I hear from you that you get the same from the podcast too. If you come along to a de-hoarding accountability Zoom session, you can find some of that community in real time. Or if that's not possible, by sharing podcast episodes on your social media or with others directly, you can help others to see that they are also not alone, especially those who've never told anyone they hoard. To join a Zoom accountability session, go to overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/ticket. To share an episode on social media, just use the share button in whichever podcast app you listen on. Thank you. So something I wanted to ask you about was about kind of people for whom hoarding is part of their identity. When someone begins de-hoarding or recovering, whatever that means, from hoarding disorder, is there a shift in identity that happens with that as well?
I think that's a really interesting question that you pose, and I hadn't thought about this. I think one of the things I do see in the shift is I see more connection. So the act of inviting me into their homes and knowing, I'll not judge, opens up their world somewhat. So they may decide to connect with others who hoard and then dig into the reasons behind hoarding by joining, therapy groups or other sort of peer groups. This can be kind of amazing for their sense of belonging and validation. Of course, with everything, there is the chance that the researcher identity can become a new kind of diversion, and understanding the reasons can be a new obsession without taking action. And that happens quite often, that there's the rabbit hole of, I need to find out everything about this topic before I can tackle it, which is a tough one. I've also seen the evangelist who wants to shout to the rooftops, I've made all this progress, and they've kind of made this new identity around their recovery. And sometimes I think I have seen kind of a redemptive narrative. I went through this so now I can help others. So that post-traumatic growth kind of pattern. But the thing that I see personally more often is that connecting and being able to open up and say and admit the problems that they're feeling, and actually having some connection and validation from others who feel the same way, think the same way. But again, it's also like it can be a bit echo chambery, and that's an element that's really hard to kind of manage.
Yes. And thinking as you're talking, other than the de-hoarding accountability Zoom sessions I run, I don't tend to engage in those kind of peer support or support group spaces. But I do know that from talking on the podcast so openly, some of the people I know through the podcast, you included, have become some of my really close people. And it's not a coincidence that you are the people who know my big secret that people don't know, and that with my openness with you about this, it kind of enables me to be more of my fuller self in other ways, I think, as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. And having someone else who just kind of goes, oh, yes, and then adds to your thought, and you go, oh my God, that's exactly what I was just going to say. It's like, it just is just so validating, and you feel a bit of belonging, like this belonging piece that you're looking for, which is probably what a lot of the stuff is about as well. You're getting that through opening up to others.
Yeah.
It's the hardest thing to do, really.
Yeah. Are there ways people can maintain their sense of identity without needing to keep every object?
Yes, but nothing good comes without hard work. So the hard work alternative is building identity through action instead of possession. So as we were talking earlier, having craft supplies to prove creativity. Let's make one small thing with what you have, and something like, instead of keeping every handwritten recipe your grandma wrote, maybe select the exemplars of the recipes that you're actually going to make and create some sort of display, a beautiful display of those. Or get one tattooed, for God's sake. Come on, people. Just get your mum's, pavlova recipe tattooed on your arm. I think that's a great idea.
Someone told me recently that there's a gravestone somewhere that's got that woman's like famous recipe for whatever her secret thing was. I can't, like, say apple crumble, let's say. Apparently she was like renowned for her apple crumble. And yeah, there's a gravestone with the recipe on. I think that's amazing.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
My aunt passed away a couple of years ago. She was 95 or something. The best pavlova maker on the planet. And they actually added it to the eulogy, to the notes that you got, which was just so beautiful. Yeah. I was like, and I've tried to make it. I can't make it as good as Auntie June. But I love that, doing something like that, the action of actually sharing that with others rather than just keeping, that feels good. I mean, it's harder because there's that risk, of failure or judgment if you try to do something.
Yeah. But I'm also thinking of, like, I sometimes look at friends as if I'm doing a scientific study when I look at how they're dealing with their objects, just to go, how do people do this? And they might say something like, oh, I was looking through my stuff from my previous job, and it was really nice to look through it, and I kept the one book that I felt represented the entire thing. And that always strikes me as, first of all, impressive decision making. Secondly, logical. And thirdly, I think a lot of people who hoard wouldn't occur to them which one bit represents it all. And that making a decision that clearly would be really hard. Then following through with getting rid of the other things. But it's very interesting to see how, I do try and stop myself saying, how would a normal person do this? But that is always the wording that comes to my mind. Deal with, I picked one of my kids' drawings from this week and the others are in the recycling. And yeah, in terms of identity things, it's interesting to see how people handle it. And often it is, which is the one most meaningful bit, or which is the one most representative bit. Oh yeah, how could I pick 2 or 3 and turn it into a feature rather than have a pile in a box under a different box?
Under the bed, It's just like, I want to, yes, it would be lovely to keep every single one and display every single one. But it's just, it's not actually honouring the person's memory, and it's not allowing you to connect with it in any way and get any, sense of joy from it at all. It's just in a box under the bed. So, yeah, I just think the whole doing rather than having is the key. I mean, I know there's no tangible proof to point to, and one of the things is often people don't want to be in progress or like they want it done. So there's all of that. So it's not being able to sit with that uncertainty again of feeling like you're not quite finished and you're not quite started, or you're not quite, you know what I mean? That not quite right.
I do. One of the hardest things for me about this podcast is that I can't come in and go, I fixed it, here's how. It's that people are witnessing me in the process, and that is not comfortable for me in any area of my life.
Yeah. It's exposing, right? It's like kind of just laying yourself bare. Yeah.
I'm much more of a, here's how I did it person than a, I'm really trying and it's really hard. Here's what I tried this week person. I find that excruciating sometimes, but also, I know it's good for me, but I do find it really hard.
Yeah, and you grow stronger as you practice it. You get more confident and you get more comfortable with saying, I don't know. I think that's the hardest thing. And others are responding to the actual you, right? Not your stuff and whether that be negative or positive. But they're responding to you and how you're presenting yourself. So I think that's really important. The work is hard though. Like the work is the work. And I know a lot of people feel, this self-identity, self-concept stuff, it's all a bit too weird or philosophical or whatever that might be. But, you've only got one life to live. You've only got kind of one. You deserve to present your true self to other people, however flawed and difficult that might be. People actually see you. People see you. People see you.
Yeah, we were talking before we were recording about a few weeks ago, I had to do a thing that didn't make me feel great about myself, and how I came away from this event feeling in a lot of ways like my self-worth was rocked, but how I'm also in a place where even when I'm feeling horrible in that kind of way, I can also kind of witness it from the outside and see and track what's happening and say, I had to see that person and they treated me this way and that made me feel like this and that's why I feel rocky.
Exactly.
And so being able to recognize some of that in terms of your identity, because that was the other part of it, was that I was kind of hiding some of my own identity to make a situation easier. And that doesn't feel great. And so I came away feeling like I had to assert my identity and I did that in a range of ways that didn't involve objects. But it also made me think of like when I was at university and I'd first come out as gay and I was amongst a lot of other people who were also newly coming out. And part of all of our reactions to that was to plaster our walls with rainbow things and gay things. And that was in many ways like a really positive reaction against what the world was telling us we should be. And it was an assertion and it was a reclaiming of our space and all of those things. And it was a communication to other people about who we were. And so those were that was externalized, but we were all doing it. This wasn't my weird relationship with externalizing. This was quite a communal activity. But how when that kind of thing is unchecked and we need an object or multiple objects for every aspect of our identity, almost to prove to ourselves that we are the thing we want to be, then it spirals. And it's one thing having a room plastered in girls kissing girls on the wall when you're 19. It's another if you need physical proof of everything you are or want to be or have been. And you're trying to live in that.
I had a conversation once with a client about someone who had multiple degrees. And we were talking about how does she decide on what notes to keep and on what elements of the various degrees, And I kind of said, oh, well, I've got one box. I've got one box. And she just looked at me like, what? How did you decide? And I said, well, I wrote a thesis and that was the culmination of the research. And yes, I did keep some notes and I did keep a couple of things. But over time, I've gone back through that and I've, reassessed that box and it's halved again and it's halved again. But there was this need that it was almost like the notes were written in blood and she wasn't able to even, because it really was literally like part of her.
Yeah.
And your knowledge can't be taken from you. Like you don't need to have that, certificate on the wall with multiple, every single thing you've done. I think some of it is around not being validated and seen as a young person, as a child.
Yes.
I think a lot of it is around that.
Yeah, and I last week was able to regain my sense of who I was by connecting with friends who know and love who I am, and by going to places that are meaningful. 5, 10, 20 years ago, that might have been buying things that proved I am who I am.
Yes.
That it was encouraging that I was able to, over a few days with a lot of work, regain, oh no, I do know who I am. I spent a few days with people who maybe try and squash some of that, but I'm still in here and I know that, and I can assert that in all of these connective and creative and exploratory ways rather than buying stuff.
Exactly. Rather than trying to sometimes it's guess. Am I the leopard print person, or am I, like there's a lot of that too. Just guessing.
I periodically get obsessed with elephants. Whenever I mention this, people contact me and go, autistic? But so I periodically get obsessed with elephants. Elephants are great.
Yeah, great.
But I remember the first time I got obsessed with elephants. I'd watched a documentary, suddenly obsessed. I watched all the elephant documentaries. And I remember going shopping, going, I need elephant things. And it wasn't, I love these animals and so I want to be reminded of them. It was, I'm an elephant person now, so I need elephant things. It was, and I can remember that so clearly in a very particular shop. I could picture, I was going, that shop will have elephant things. And it's so interesting that now I can get a new interest. I still adore elephants. I don't feel like I have to prove that by having elephant ornaments or T-shirts or whatever. Yeah. And this is not to say I am perfect in this area. We know I am far from it, but these are encouraging things that it's good to mark.
Yes, exactly. And recognizing that that's how you may have behaved in the past and why that didn't work, and then therefore how you will move forward.
Yeah. What would you say to someone listening who feels like letting go of possessions means losing themselves? Because that's a terrifying prospect. What's a good first step? I know, because it's a big question, but we like first steps, don't we?
Yeah, we do. First, I want you to know the fear is real and it makes complete sense. If your possessions have been holding pieces of your identity, kind of proving all these things, preserving your past and promising your future, then of course letting go feels like self-destruction. I mean, you're not being irrational. The brain is doing exactly what it thinks it needs to do to protect you. But here's what I need you to hear. You already exist separately from your possessions. You existed before you acquired them. You exist in this moment, listening to this, regardless of what's around you. The objects were never you. They were trying to prove you. And there's a difference. The work isn't about losing yourself. It's about discovering kind of who, it sounds trite, but discovering who that you've been there all along, really. The craft supplies don't make you creative. Your mind does. The books don't make you intellectual. Your curiosity does. Bam, drop that one in there. The mementos don't make drink, everybody. The mementos don't make your past real. Your lived experience does. Letting go of objects doesn't erase you, it reveals you. But I also want to be honest, this is hard work. It's probably the hardest work you'll ever do because it requires kind of building an identity from the inside instead of claiming it from the outside. And that takes time, support, courage. You don't have to do it alone and you don't have to do it all at once, which is a good thing. So where can we start? The first step I think, is notice without action. So for 1 week, just notice when you have the thought, I can't let go of this because it's part of who I am. Don't throw anything out. Don't change anything. Just notice. So, notice which items trigger that feeling the most, because that's good data. That's good information. What identity are they protecting? Is it this being prepared or loved or intellectual or whatever? Is it present identity, past identity, or future identity? Which I think is a really important question. So just noticing without action, no surprise that this is an ACT diffusion technique, but you're observing the thought, not being controlled by it. So there's no threat of loss or anxiety, and everything stays manageable. So I think that's the good place to start. One of the things that we do within ACT and diffusion is saying things, adding to the sentence, prefacing it with, I have this thought, or I have the thought that. It just gives you that distance and gives you a bit more perspective. So just notice, write it down if it's helpful, don't do anything. And then the next step is test one belief gently. So pick one small belief to just test it gently. Again, not discarding anything. But, spend 15 minutes, if it's creativity that your identity is, set the timer and spend 15 minutes making something with materials you already have that you can find right now, rather than rummaging through the spare room.
I swear you'll make something better than if you have the perfect things to start with. I promise.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be finished even. Just create something, anything. This, again, it works because you're building your identity through doing, not having. Small enough, no, tiny little pieces, no triggers. And then one thing I also kind of like the next step, if you're feeling brave, find one person who gets it. So tell one trusted person what you're working on. Not everything, just I'm working on understanding why it's hard for me to let things go. This could be a therapist, hopefully someone who specializes in hoarding, a trusted friend who will not judge you, or a family member who you think you can really open up to, but that's a tricky one. Support group, coach or counselor, and what to ask for from that person. What am I going to ask for? I don't really want them to give, I'm not ready for you to help me clean or throw things away. I just need someone who understands this is about identity, not just clutter. Can you be that person for me? So that allows you to kind of break the isolation and secrecy, because we often are doing everything behind closed doors without anyone really knowing what's going on or knowing us deeply. It creates a little bit of accountability, someone who's gentle and kind, but who will be able to witness and reinforce some of the changes that you've been making. And they can also, this external person can reflect back who you are without the stuff, because they see you. And they really, they do. People see you. And that, I think, is one of the things that does, like, therapy is brilliant for. It is reflecting back what you see in that person that gives them perspective and allows them to work out a little bit about who they might be with their identity, which has probably been completely fragmented in the past. But then connection starts to hopefully start to replace objects. But choose someone who can hear this is hard, like, without trying to fix it or minimize it, right? So it has to be this person who can, who can hear this is hard, but not try to, solve it for you. And of course, my last step is values, baby, values. What kind of person do I want to be? What qualities matter to me? Not what do I want to accomplish or what do I want to have, I want to have $1 billion or whatever, but what matters to me? What qualities? How do I want to show up in the world? And really, looking at a list of values, Google them, they're on the internet, write down 3 to 5 and then ask, are my possessions helping me live these values or preventing? This is where the kind of shift happens. Are they you're into craft, but the volume, is that stopping you from being this person, etc.? So this is where the rubber hits the road, I think, because values are really going to open this up. But it's all about, the identity is from the inside rather than outside, and that's hard. But values are a very, very, very good place to start working.
And I think we've covered a lot, but is there anything about this relationship between hoarding and identity, or objects and identity, that you think we've missed, or that you think people need to understand?
I just want to reiterate that you existed before the objects. Letting go doesn't erase you, it reveals you. Identity builds, as I said, from the inside. It's portable, stable, authentic, and free, as are you. The objects were scaffolding, so, they were helping you move through the world, but you can stand on your own. The objects can't give you identity. They can only store your hope that you have one. The work is discovering. You already do have an identity. You just have to discover it.
And also trust yourself. Trust yourself that you might actually be the person you want to be.
Yes. You might already be under there, just buried in stuff. And when you let yourself be, it is a little bit about allowing yourself, isn't it, to be that person? Because you might already be there.
What is one habit or practice that has either improved or helped you to maintain your own mental health?
Oh, I was thinking about this today. Definitely my pets. So petting my pets. So my dog's ears are the most luscious and cute things. And I love giving him an ear scratch. And my cats just like to sleep with me, and I just love spending. I don't rush and get up. Sometimes I just think it's nice to just be with them because they're not going to be here forever. So I want to enjoy their presence in my life. And I do find just petting a cat, especially a purring cat, is wonderful for your mental health.
It is. And I'm thinking about a lot of people, because I don't have pets, for various reasons. Mostly, this isn't a great environment for something to live in. If I did, it would probably be a cat, which I'm allergic to, all of these things. But I know a lot of people who rent, for instance, and can't have pets, but they will go to the city farm and, go stroke a donkey and look at the guinea pigs and see the pigs and the sheep, or even there's a chain store here called Pets at Home where you go for your pet food and stuff, but also they sell guinea pigs and rabbits and hamsters. And I know people who literally go on a trip to Pets at Home just to look at the rabbits.
Yeah.
And so even if you can't have your own animals, there is a real thing where there can be something very grounding, there could be something very relaxing, there could be something very reassuring about, just time spent petting, looking after, appreciating, noticing. You mentioned your dog's ears, like noticing the texture and like, the texture here when I touch this bit of the horse is different to when I touch that bit of the horse.
And how much enjoyment he gets out of a good scratch on his ears. Just the sound that he makes is so cute. It's like, that's heaven. It's so sweet.
And when you stroke a cat and it purrs, you really feel like, I've just made the world a better place.
I know. And isn't it something about the vibrations that can, the vibrations of the purr can help bones knit and stuff? There's all sorts of crazy, amazing, benefits from petting animals. Japan, of course, they have their petting, You can go to the Capybara Cafe, or you can go
Yeah, we have cat cafes here, actually. Yeah.
cat cafes. Yeah, we do too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that in some big cities, I don't know if you can do it here, but some big cities, you can actually go and rent a dog to walk for the day.
Yes, there's a app here that like matches people who need their dog walking with people who want to
People who
walk a
want to walk
dog.
dog.
Yeah.
The other one was recently I was talking to another clinician, and she's saying, "Oh, I found this woman who rescues wombats, and she needs wombat cuddlers."
What an offer.
And so I'm going to hook up a bunch of clients who love animals, and they're going to go along and be wombat cuddlers, because baby wombats are the cutest thing. They are so cute.
That's amazing. What a dream. Because there are a lot of official therapies around animals, like equine therapy in particular has been well studied. But even if you're not in a kind of formal therapeutic role, there just is something. For instance, every time I get close to a cow, I am surprised by how big cows are. I forget in between how big cows are. I think they're big, but they're always bigger than I expect them to be. And I have this experience every time I see a cow up close. And then it makes me laugh that I'd somehow forgotten in the meantime that they really are quite big.
Massive.
They're massive. And yeah, there's a whole... And animals can be funny, they can be loving, they could be holes as well, but even that's probably quite good for us to be reminded of our place in this world. But yeah,
exactly, they're the real leaders.
Yeah. So no, I love that. That is a brilliant habit or practice to be engaged in. So, Jan, thank you very, very much indeed. Your wisdom, as always, is helpful and welcome and lovely.
Thank you.
If there is one single place on the internet that people can go to find out more about you, where should they go?
They should go to my website, because when they go there, they could have a look at and buy my book. It's cheaper than a coffee, because coffee's got very expensive here in Melbourne now. So it is literally cheaper than a coffee. So my website is stuffology.com.au. And while you're there, let me know if you'd like me to write the next book in the series. I'm thinking attachment to possessions or something. I'd love to hear from you. So come on down. Tell me what you want.
Marvellous. Well, Jan, thank you. You are much appreciated.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me. May we take a moment to reflect on the meaning of place and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we record and listen to this podcast today. I am speaking on the lands of the Boon Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and I acknowledge their connection to country, both land and sea, and culture. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples listening today.
Thank you for listening to that Hoarder Overcome Compulsive Hoarding podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you on board. You can find all the links I've mentioned and a transcript of the episode online at overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk. To find out more about how you can support this podcast and the overall project, go to overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/support and do subscribe to the podcast so you make sure you don't miss any future episodes. There may be links in this podcast that earn me money. This doesn't come at any extra cost to you if you make a purchase through those links, and it helps to support the podcast.
I give you permission. I really think that the only option is to allow it to pass on.
Is that the worst thought in the world? Speaking of passing on.
Yes. Yes, that is the worst part. I don't know how to backpedal now. Where do I go from here?
You're fine.
I think it needs to be released and go to the landfill not in the sky.
No. You're digging now, Jan. You're digging.
Digging myself a hole. Oh, my God. But yes, you have my permission. I think there's...
Are there ways, I hope there are, people can...
No, there are no ways.
Nope,
sorry,
hopeless.
okay.
Sorry.
No.
So what would you say? Have I just asked that? No. This podcast is sponsored by Chirp Your Home, a decluttering and organising course for overwhelmed people. Amy, a declutter coach and professional organiser, has condensed down a range of tools and techniques which she's developed with clients over the past 5 years. Chirp Your Home is a course that uses a mixture of reflective exercises and practical tools with lots of options and opportunities to adapt methods to work for you as an individual. This isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. The course is in audio format with accompanying worksheets, and it's split across 4 modules. If you're worried about finding the time to work through the course, Amy also runs a free body doubling group twice a week that you can use to work through the course in your own time. Visit chirpyourhome.podia.com, that's chirpyourhome.podia.com, and use voucher code OCHPOD for 15% off.